the walnut who hid a secret behind every joke. You won't believe what happens in Dry Fruit Valley. Every nut and fruit had a face. But none of them were as confusing, hilarious, or secretly broken as Walno, the walnut who could make the whole valley laugh, while hiding something no one could ever imagine. Everyone loved his jokes. No one knew his truth. Dry Fruit Valley was always buzzing, chattering almonds, dancing raisins, pistachios showing off their juggling skills. It was a bright, cheerful world. And in the center of it all lived Walno, the walnut with the cracked shell and big expressive eyes. He didn't just make others laugh. He forced himself to do it. He'd stretch his face into wild expressions, twist his shell, and exaggerate every emotion until the crowd burst into laughter. They called him, but behind every laugh he created, there was a crack inside him growing deeper. Everyone in the valley believed Walno's deep shell line was just a funny crack, a charm that made him look hilarious. But Walno knew the truth. It wasn't a comedy feature. It was a wound, a reminder. At night, when the valley slept, he would touch that crack gently and whisper, something was inside that shell. Something trying to come out. Something he feared more than anything. The day of the Funny Fruit Annual Showdown arrived, the biggest event of the valley. Lights flashed, music boomed, the crowd screamed with excitement. And then the host shouted, Walno stepped onto the stage. He switched into his funny mode instantly. Weird faces, goofy movements, panicked reactions. The audience exploded with laughter. But then, something went wrong. As he performed his funniest act, his crack glowed. A tiny pulse of light escaped from inside his shell. The crowd didn't notice, but one dry fruit backstage did. The date fruit with sharp eyes. She gasped. Walno froze. The light faded. He forced a laugh and continued his act like nothing happened. But Kurma had seen everything, and she heard something else too. A faint whisper from inside Walno. Don't let them see. Her heart skipped a beat. After the show, Walno quietly slipped away into an old abandoned grinder factory. Curious and uneasy, Kurma followed him. The factory was filled with dust, broken machines, cracked floors, and a strange humming sound echoing from somewhere deep inside. Walno walked slowly toward a dark corner, his head low, his comedic expressions completely gone. Kurma hid behind a rusted pipe. Walno touched his crack. A glow flickered again, brighter this time. Kurma held her breath. Walno whispered, Not again. Please. Not tonight. Kurma felt chills climb up her spine. What was he begging for? What lived inside that shell? And why was his crack glowing like something alive? Walno moved toward a rusty old drawer marked with a faded warning label. His face turned serious, something no one ever saw. He reached toward the drawer, then flinched back, panicked. Kurma's heart raced. She noticed a loose paper slipping out of the drawer. It read, She covered her mouth to stop a gasp. She looked at Walno. His eyes were full of pain, not comedy, not joy, just fear. He forced a smile, a broken one, and said to himself, They need me to be funny. If I stop, if it comes out, everything will change. The crack glowed violently. The glow intensified, bright enough to light the entire corner. Kurma stepped back. A voice leaked out of the crack again, louder this time. Walno screamed. The entire factory vibrated. Machines rattled. Dust swirled into the air. Kurma's heart pounded. She had never heard a voice like that. Deep, echoing, alive. Then suddenly, silence. Walno ran out of the factory in fear, leaving Kurma alone with the forbidden file and endless questions. Walno didn't remember how he got out of the factory. He only remembered running. running until his shell burned, running until his breath cracked, running until the glowing inside him pulsed like fire. The voice inside the crack hissed softly. Walno stumbled, fell to his knees, gripping his chest. "No, not now. Not again. Please don't wake up. Please." The glow burst for a second. Walno grabbed his head. His jokes, his funny faces, all felt like distant memories now. He whispered shakily, "Not tonight. Don't take over tonight." But the thing inside him growled, "You are nothing without me." Dry Fruit Valley at night was quiet, too quiet. Wind moved softly, tree branches creaked. The moonlight made everything silver. Walno forced himself to walk toward his small, cracked hut. His legs felt heavy, as if he was pulling something behind him. He shut the door quietly. He locked all 3 latches. He placed a wooden board across it. He even pushed a chair against it. But the moment he exhaled, a single soft knock echoed. Walno froze. The knock wasn't from outside. It was from inside his shell. A tap from the thing trapped within. Each tap vibrated through his body like electricity. He said through trembling lips. A whisper came again. Walno walked to the mirror, the only honest thing in the room. He stared at himself. His usual funny grin was gone. His eyes were wide and frightened. The crack glowed faintly like a breathing heartbeat. He placed his hand against the mirror. Suddenly, a memory flashed. His younger self, a small walnut, shell smooth, no cracks, no wounds. He laughed naturally back then. Not forced laughter, not fake comedy, not a mask. And then, a lab. Bright lights, metal tables, dry fruit scientists whispering. Walno gasped and stumbled back. "No, I don't want to remember this." The mirror didn't care. Another memory flashed. Him screaming. Them opening the shell. Something injected. Something alive. A presence entering him. A voice he had never heard. The glow surged. Walno grabbed his head and screamed. Meanwhile, back in the factory, Kerma stood frozen in front of the forbidden drawer. She slowly picked up the fallen file labeled. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside were documents, X-ray sketches, energy readings, psychological reports. One page read, "It is a consciousness, a second entity, a split soul." Kerma's heart slammed into her ribs. Another page, "Inner entity personality, aggressive, powerful, emotionally unstable." She whispered. Her eyes widened at the final line. The paper slipped from her hand. Back in his hut, Walno fell to the floor. The glow was getting brighter. The voice inside him was getting louder. "Let me out. No, you survived because of me. Stop. They laughed because of me. Please. You're weak without me." Walno slammed his fist against the floor. "I am funny because I chose to be, not because you made me." Silence. Then the voice whispered, almost amused. "You still don't understand. You didn't choose me. They put me inside you." Walno's breath stopped. His shell felt cold. His world spun. "They put you inside me?" The voice chuckled slowly. "Let me show you." The crack split. Not fully, but slightly. A line of brilliant blue light shot across the room. Walno screamed. Kerma dropped the file and ran out of the factory. She had to find Walno. She had to warn him. She had to stop whatever was happening. The valley was silent as she sprinted through the dark pathways. Until she heard it, a distant roar. Not an animal, not a fruit. Something unrecognizable. It came from the direction of Walno's hut. She ran faster. The sky above his hut was glowing blue. She whispered, "Oh no, it's starting." Inside the hut, Walno clutched the edges of his shell as the inner entity pushed harder. Light spilled out. The walls shook. The table flipped over. The mirror cracked. Walno cried. The voice roared. Kurma reached the hut. Blue cracks of energy glowed through the wooden walls. She placed her hand on the door. Walno. Silence. Then, a slow, unnatural laugh echoed from inside. Not Walno's laugh. Something else. Something darker. Something that didn't belong to any dry fruit in the valley. Kurma whispered through the door. Walno, please tell me you're okay. The door shook violently. Blue light poured from every gap. A voice, deep, distorted, echoing, answered. Walno isn't here right now. Kurma stumbled back, her eyes filled with fear. The entity continued. The hut exploded with blue light. When the hut burst open with blinding blue light, the valley shook. Dust settled. Silence. And out of that glowing smoke, his shell was cracked wider than ever. Blue energy seeped out like veins. His eyes glowed. Half Walno, half something ancient. Kurma staggered back. Walno, is that you? The entity answered with a slow, echoing voice. He took one step forward. The ground trembled. Deep inside the glowing shell, Walno was trapped, standing in darkness. A blue version of himself towered over him, the inner entity. Walno pleaded, Why are you doing this? They'll get hurt. The entity smiled. Walno shook his head violently. No, they laughed because I wanted them to, because I never wanted to scare anyone, because comedy is all I had left. The D-entity's smile faded. Walno whispered, Maybe, but hiding you was the only good thing I ever did. The entity stepped closer. Kurma watched his body tremble as blue cracks spread across his shell. She yelled, Walno! I know you're still in there! Come back! The entity turned to her, an eerie calm in its voice. He can't hear you anymore. He's drowning. But Kurma wasn't scared. She stepped closer, right in front of the being. I don't care. I'm not leaving him. The entity tilted its head. No one had ever stood against it before. Inside the mind realm, Walno clenched his fists. He was tired, broken, weak. But then he heard something faint, a voice echoing from outside. Kurma's voice. The entity heard it too. It growled. Walno's eyes widened. She stayed? A warmth flickered in Walno's chest, a warmth stronger than fear, stronger than pain, stronger than the entity. He whispered, Someone actually stayed for me? The entity roared. Walno took a step forward. Yes, I do. Another step. Because someone believing in me, that's the one thing you'll never understand. The entity tried to strike him. Walno blocked the blow. Blue sparks exploded. Outside, Kurma placed her hands on Walno's shell. Walno, listen to me. Her eyes filled with tears. You don't have to be funny. You don't have to hide. You don't have to carry this alone. Her tears slid down the glowing crack. Something changed. The light softened. Inside, Walno felt that warmth again. He whispered, She sees me. The entity shouted. Walno grabbed the entity with all his strength. I want to be seen! A massive burst of blue light filled the mind. Outside, Kurma watched the shell glow brighter and brighter. Then suddenly, a shockwave blasted outward. The blue light vanished. Walno collapsed into her arms, unconscious but breathing, and behind him, a faint blue silhouette hovered, a ghostly version of the entity, weak and flickering. It whispered, Set free, then dissolved into thin air. Walno slowly opened his eyes. His crack was still there, but it no longer glowed. He looked at Kurma, confused. I won? She smiled softly. No, you didn't win. She held his hand. You survived, and that's stronger than winning. Walno breathed shakily. For the first time, I actually feel light. Kurma laughed gently. Maybe now you can be funny because you want to, not because you're hiding something. Walno managed a small smile. A new kind of funny. They looked at the sunrise together. The valley slowly woke up. No blue lights, no voices, just peace. Walno whispered. Kurma smiled. Why? Walno looked at her. Because now, I'm finally free.